Hey guys, Ben Paynes here, and today we are back once again with another video. However, this time we are taking part in a Monday night social event at the brand new Eastleigh track, so down in Southampton for this one, and we're going to get into it right away. But before the footage rolls, I would just like to say thank you guys so much for hitting 150 subscribers. I think it's gone up one more by the time I'm recording this, but I really do appreciate it. And if you are new here and you like the video, could you please hit the subscribe button, as it really does mean the world to me. And once again, I'd like to thank you all so much. And if you do enjoy this video, could you also hit the like button down below, as it really does help me out and I really do appreciate it. But we are just going to jump straight into the video here right away. And here I was finding straight away the footage you're watching is the third session of 3 that I did on the evening. So the first session I did, I was all over the place in these electric karts. Obviously this is the first time I've experienced the electric karts. I was all over the place, I couldn't get any of the angles right, I was struggling, I was hitting the walls. I even span on this bottom corner here, which was absolutely deadly. I don't have the footage for that though, unfortunately, but the lights do go green, and at this point in the night I think I had the electric kart sussed. I sort of understood what I needed to do in order to have a somewhat decent time. Now heading into the session as I came down for this evening, I was aiming for a lap time of 35 to 34 seconds, because I knew that some of the fastest laps I'd seen on YouTube so far were 33.8, so I wanted to be around the 34 mark, mid 34. So here we can see straight away, going down the inside of a couple of people making use of that boost button, which we will introduce later into the video as well. And there was a lot of argy-bargy here as we come down into the bottom section. It was literally like driving on ice in these electric karts. You had to get the kart pointed directly forward before you put any power down, otherwise you were going to be sliding all over the place. You're going to be pirouetting like you were on Dancing on Ice. But getting into it, I was really understanding the track a bit more, and I was understanding where I'd put the power down, where I could sort of use the car and maximise the potential of it. Obviously, being quite heavy, I was not used to being able to accelerate very quickly off the line, and this sort of mitigated all of the weight differences that I usually moan about. So there was no excuses tonight, it was just raw pace. And here we can see there's a lot of bumping and barging going on. A lot of people clumped together for the first few laps. So our first lap was a 36.546, and our second lap was a 37.484, which I'm completely not surprised about, considering the fact that we were pretty much in a car park going through the bottom section. But here, onto our third proper lap, we have a little bit more pace, and the person ahead of me was actually one of the quicker people on the evening, so I was just trying to keep up with them, trying to follow their lines and just see where I could improve in myself. Obviously I don't really know the track too well. I did pick it up quite quickly. It's quite a short track, quite a fun track, but obviously one that is quite difficult to master, especially in the new karts. We come across the line there for our third lap at 35.131, so immediately where I wanted to be. And I was really happy with this, as I think in the first session I came across the line with 35.4, the second session was a 34.8, so I was really hoping to try and get below the 34.5 second mark if I could. So let's see later on in the video if I actually managed to do it. But once again, trying to get as much speed and grip out of that bottom hairpin as I could, because that was one of the corners where if you messed it up you really were going to lose a lot of time. But we come across the line here at 34.488, so already beating my target straight away on one of our first laps straight away. And you can see as well a driver behind me really giving me some grief, really bumping into the back of me, and it was really getting under my skin a bit. So I wasn't just going to let them through. I wanted them to try and get past more on their overall pace rather than just bumping me out of the way. You can see there again on the left hand side a driver that has met their demise and gone straight into the barrier at the bottom hairpin, which is something I did sympathise with, as I had done it earlier in the session. So here, just trying to tag along once again to the driver ahead of me, just trying to make sure that I could get a good exit and some good lines, just trying to see where the driver ahead sort of positions the karts. I know they do come down, they have been down a couple of weeks whilst the new Eastleigh track's been open, so I was just trying to follow them around, just trying to see where I could actually maximise use of the boost button. And here as well I was using it quite a lot. You can see me just tapping it there at the bottom of the screen, and it did give you a little bit of a momentum boost, but I did find it only lasted for around a second. As soon as that second was up, you could feel the kart sort of dragging its way back, and now I just tried to sneak down the inside and did actually go into the back of the driver ahead, which completely made me lose all momentum, and that caused the driver behind me to bump into me. So a little bit of a bumping train going on, and I think I lost my head a little bit here, going a little bit wide, but then just trying to defend into the next corner and just trying to get back on track to where I wanted to be, trying to create a bit of space for myself and follow the other drivers around. You can see already how many yellow flags there were, so I knew that if I wanted to get a decent time, I'd have to do it as quickly as I possibly could, especially as there was a lot of drivers that I think were quite new to the track like myself, so they were still getting used to it and getting used to the karts. Obviously the karts are something that I in particular am not used to, and I really did enjoy them. I really did enjoy the speed, the initial torque that you got from the karts, because it was completely different to anything I experienced in the petrol karts that I usually use at Bristol or Cardiff, or I had used at Coventry. So it was a real difference, and I really had to adapt my way of my driving style. So usually I drive really smoothly into corners. I try and steer with my whole body rather than just flick the steering wheel in and try and counteract any oversteer that I get. But here you see I'm really violent on the steering wheel compared to how I usually drive, really flicking the wheel in to try and get the back of the kart stood out, so you could try and get it facing in the direction that you want to go as quickly as possible. As I said, the straighter the car is, the faster it's going to go. So once again, just trying to get it really turned in as quick as I possibly could through this corner, trying to open up on the exit and hit the boost button once again. That was the prime position for the boost, and I did like the little touch from the electric karts as well. When you hit the brakes, you can see the little light comes on up ahead of the driver in front of us, which is something that I quite like, because you could actually see when a driver was going to brake, so there was a real minimalised risk of loading someone ahead of you, which I really did appreciate. I quite like that on the new cars, but unfortunately the driver behind me thought the complete opposite and decided to just continually load me into every corner, just trying to bump me off the line so they could find a way through. So once again, just trying to get as tight as possible, but also trying to stay as straight as possible coming out of that hairpin at the top before the bottom of the ramp, and just trying to get as good a run down into the bottom hairpin as I possibly could. Again, the bottom floor just really feeling like a skid pan rather than any grip whatsoever. We come across the line there, 34.213, so our fastest lap so far. I'm really going, still looking for the inside there to make a move on the driver ahead. I felt like I was a little bit faster than them, but I did think best of it. I didn't want to just bump them off the line, so instead I just held back and just held my momentum behind them. You can see that they got the car all over the place in all shapes, and I hit the boost button, but they do close the gap there, so I was unable to make it stick once again. They go really wide here, and I was hoping to get a nice run on the inside coming out of that hairpin, but unfortunately it just didn't stick, and this caused me to just remain behind them. I kept looking over my shoulder for the person behind me, but what I didn't think was my fastest lap so far has now been posted once again at 34.148, which I was super happy with, and I was just hoping that I could continually improve on this. Again, the driver in front of me goes really wide. I shake my head a little bit there. I look for a bit of a missed opportunity to capitalise on their mistake, and using that boost button once again just to get down the ramp and just trying to gain as much time on the person behind me as I possibly could. I was really practicing getting as close to that apex I possibly could, whilst also getting the angle of the car facing in a straight line so I could almost propel myself down that back straight. And again, we come across the line quite consistent, 34.155, so doing a good job of just staying consistent here. See a driver ahead there, just getting a little bit tangled with the driver in front, actually bumping into them and then apologising. I then capitalised and got up the inside of them as well, and then managed to close the door on them going into the top hairpin here. So once again, a little bit of a gap created, but I was really trying to just chase down the driver ahead of me, so just to prove to myself that I could do a decent job. But you can see there the driver up behind me just trying to sneak down the inside there and almost forcing me offline, which did throw me off a little bit there, so I lost a little bit of time to him and a little bit of time in terms of my lap too, so at 34.991, a little bit slower. And I also made a little bit of a mistake there by going into the wall, going a little bit too deep, and the kart just slid. I didn't put enough power down. One thing I didn't realise is in the electric karts you really need to use the power mid-corner in order to get the rotation in the kart. If you don't do that, then the kart will not rotate and you'll find yourself just heading straight towards the barrier. And this is something that I was doing in the first session, driving it a little bit more like a petrol kart, and I found that I did actually end up hitting the barrier one or two more times than I really wanted to. But we seem to master it a little bit better as we come across the line there at 33.922, so now down to 33 second laps, really on pace to where I wanted to be. Obviously, as I said, the other videos I've seen on YouTube so far, 33.8 was a decent time, so I was really happy with this at the moment. Really felt my pace was in the right position. Obviously, I can't really use my excuse of weight for being a little bit slower, because as I mentioned, the initial torque from the karts just really does propel you, and unfortunately there I did just carry a little bit too much speed into the corner. You really wanted to brake on the ramp going down rather than actually on the floor, because if you brake on the floor, the tyres don't really grip and you just sort of fly wide. So I think that's sort of what happened there, and I didn't really want to turn into the corner because it would have resulted in a spin, much like I did in the first session. So the driver behind me does manage to get past, and I thought at this point, well, if they're bumping me, they must have some sort of pace. So I was just trying to tag along behind them, follow their lines, and just see what sort of time I can make up here behind them, see if they get held up, see if I can follow their lines. I think they had been to the track a few times as well, so it was good to actually follow some of the people that were more accustomed to the track in comparison to myself. So coming into the latter stages of the session here, 34.107, a really good lap once again, a pretty around average for I didn't even expect to be in the low 34s, if I'm honest. So I was really doing a good job. I was really happy with my performance so far. I felt that my lines were clean. I was applying the brakes and the accelerator in a really good way. But what I didn't realise coming off is the fastest lap of the evening was actually the new lap record. I don't know if it still is at the time of recording, but it was a 33.1 second lap. So obviously I was still almost a second off the pace, but I was really happy with my performance. And we come across the line there at 33.833, which was in fact my fastest lap of the session, which I was really happy with. As I mentioned, I wanted to be in the 35 to 34 second region, and I think I absolutely smashed that target out of the park. Was really happy with it. So at this point I was just trying to catch up to the person in front of me and just try and follow them through, especially with this little bit of a car park here. Once again, just forcing it down the inside there, making a move stick. I look for the inside there, but it doesn't quite work. The driver in front of me just going all over the place. I do take a little bit of a battering from the driver behind me, and you can see they're side by side, but I do have the inside line for the first corner as we come across the line with a 35.149. So a little bit more off the pace now, but I was expecting this as we were coming up behind a little bit of traffic. The driver in front of me using the brake there, and that caused me to really close up behind them, accidentally going into them a couple of times there. And here is where the use of the boost button really shows. I've hit the boost button there at the start and actually managed to propel myself right the way down the ramp, and I don't think the driver in front of me used the boost button, and that actually caused me to gather so much momentum going down the ramp that I was actually able to overtake them before we even reached the corner, which I was really happy with. It is a good feature and one that I think could be implemented a lot more, so I was really happy to use this. It really did make a little bit of a difference, and there was a little bit more strategy of when to use it. Obviously I used it on the exact same point on the track every lap because I wasn't really in a race situation. I was just trying to go for our fastest lap. You see me scrabbling to hit the button once again as I'm coming out of the corner, but just really trying to close up to the drivers ahead. But as I mentioned, it just really was a nice feature to use, so if there was a slower driver ahead of you that didn't really understand the use of the button, you could just hit it and just go for it, especially down that ramp, gather a lot of momentum. We come across the line there at 34.268, and we do manage to catch up to the driver ahead of us once again. We're just trying to tag along behind them here, just try and get a quick lap in if we can. They're being held up by the driver ahead. You see how much they're using the brake. I almost go straight into the back of them there, but I did lose a lot of momentum from having to hit the brakes there. A lot of tyres squealing, and again he goes for a little move down the inside. I can't quite hit the brakes enough to stop the car from sliding there, so we actually managed to go into the back of the driver ahead again. I try and back off here to give him a little bit more space, but I do get forced wide a little bit by the driver behind me, and actually as we come across the line, that was in fact our last lap of the session, so it was a 35.641, which obviously wasn't as fast. Our fastest lap being a 33.833, which I was super happy with. But that does in fact, of course, bring us to the end of the video. So I hope you guys have enjoyed this one. I really enjoyed heading down to Southampton and giving these electric karts a go. If you have enjoyed the video, could you please hit the like button and hit the subscribe button. If you do want to see more, I have another event coming up this week, which I'm really excited to show you guys, and I have more to come throughout the winter period and obviously going into next year. So thank you all for watching. I'll catch you guys in the next one. Take care.